Hi, welcome back to the Eagle Insight podcast, where we bring military precision to your leadership journey. Today, I'm honored to have with us Troy Daland. He's a retired Air Force special operators with multiple combat and operational tours, and he can operate in any environment. But he chooses to operate in Largo, Florida. He's living his best life as a small business owner. Troy owns Air Zero residential heating and air conditioning company. And thanks so much for being here, man.
Oh, Bob, it's a pleasure to be here with you. It's been a long time since we've seen each other.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I know that you've been really busy building this amazing company, and I want to kind of tap into a little bit about your background as a special operator and what is it that you learned that makes you a great business owner for a small business here in Florida?
Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of skills that the military teaches you just over time. I spent 24 years in the Air Force. So in that time, you really get to figure out a lot about yourself, your ability to lead or manage at a younger age, and just really deal with different cultures across, well, the globe, really. So having a good understanding of how people work, I think makes you more apt to work well on the business side of things. Because business is all people. It doesn't matter if you're in the construction industry or what we're doing, right? The home services, it's all about the people.
Yeah, I think some leaders lose touch with that and they think the business is about the business thing, the management side of things. And we sometimes forget that no matter what it is that you're doing, the leadership component comes into play every single day. And I know we can get stuck into the, okay, I need a strategic plan and do a lot of strategic thinking. But I've heard you say this, like every day is a tactical thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You work at the tactical level, especially with folks, right? The people in your organization, you have to have those touch points. There's a daily interaction that comes along with that. If you're leading a business, especially a small one like we have, you have to have that daily contact. I'm not saying you can't leave and do other things, but you have to have those people in place that the job is going to get done because you have sent out, let's call it commander's intent, right? They know how the business is supposed to be run. They have your vision for the company and what people are supposed to be doing when they're meeting with clients or different customers that we have. So yeah, I think there's a very tactile level leadership that's needed for the size of the company that we are. Now I understand when you start to grow as a company and you hit the 10 million mark or 20 and beyond, like there's going to be layers of leadership. Just like there is in the military, there's layers. I would say our company is very flat and tactical, right? We have an organization under 10 people out there doing stuff. So there's interaction between, the managers I have, the technicians, every single day. So there's no separation really between leadership.
Yeah, having a flat organization has a lot of advantages. It's very high touch, and then you can really instill your values and your leadership philosophy right down to the execution level. How important is that you're able to make sure that everybody on your team sees the world the way you do?
I don't know if they see it the way I do, but having an understanding or having a goal as a team to move forward is extremely important, right? So everybody has a goal that we're meeting as a team together, right? Everybody's got their individual goals. This is what they need to produce per month, or this is how many touch points they have with our customers. So there's certain KPIs that they maintain as individuals, but you as a leader have to sit down with those individuals too and make sure that the goals are on track. If they're not, how are we going to modify your behavior to go ahead and reach those KPIs, those key performance indicators that we've laid out?
So I've heard people say this. They've said this to me. Well, leadership in the military is pretty easy because people just do what you tell them to, and so you have this compliant population that you're leading. I, of course, disabuse them of that idea, but I do wonder how different is it leading people in the private sector than it is leading people in the military?
Man, that's such a great question. I definitely go back and forth on it. I would say at a foundational level, there's really no difference. Yes, and I've heard that people are like, well, they're in the military, they have to follow your instructions to the T. And anybody that served, Bob, right, that's not the case. Right? In the military, they're not incentivized by money. They're really not incentivized by money, but there's other aspects of the military, right? Everybody has a common purpose. They're working together. They're there for their comrades in arms, if you will, their friends. And really, if you hear people spend a lot of time on the battlefield, I mean, even at the tactical level, they're just worried about their brothers and sisters, right? On the civilian side, there is some incentive towards money, but I would say as a whole, that's something that's just kind of a benefit. They like to have a purpose. There has to be some type of thing that's motivating them to come to work, to go ahead and accomplish the mission. Now, whether it's, the other people on the team, the culture that they're involved with in that company. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons people go to work. And I understand there's basic fundamental needs that you need to take care of, food, water, shelter, that type of thing. But outside of that, they got to work for a company that they feel like they're a part of, advancing and creating a culture which they want to be part of.
Yeah, that culture piece keeps coming up. I think that happens over and over again with leaders. They start to realize that culture is not just this buzzword that you can put on a PowerPoint slide and say, yeah, we like our people, we treat them nice or whatever. But it's something much deeper than that.
Oh, for sure. And I would say in the residential space that we operate in, I wouldn't say there's a ton of professional growth in there. Right? A lot of these folks get into the trade or the skilled trades because their father, their brother, their whatever was involved with, doing trades, or they didn't really have an option outside of high school. We're trying to change that, right? You're a professional in this industry. It's important what you do for the community. And I tell you what, not a whole lot of people can do what you do, especially if you're good at it. So there's a whole, let's be a pro. It's pretty much what we put throughout the company. Be a pro. The professionalization of an organization like we have is built, I would say it's built into our culture, right? I didn't just come out and say, oh, well, for our culture, we're going to have this, this, and this. You know as well as I do, you can't control the culture. You can help influence it, put some guardrails on what your beliefs are, but really the culture is going to take on its own. You just got to be there to make sure that it doesn't get out of control if it starts going in the wrong direction. So we begin with being a professional. The way you act at home should be the way you act at work, is the way you act out in the community, right? You shouldn't have this changing character as you go through the week. Like you act one way at home, one way at work, one way in front of the customer. No, you're a professional. You represent the organization you're with. You care about what you're doing, right? And I think that gives a lot of people a good reason to come to work and feel like they're part of something.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. And I think you're right. It's hard to control your culture. It's I guess at best you can influence it, but that a lot of it comes down to being absolutely consistent, right? Part of that is you as a leader being a role model for that culture, right? And I think how you articulate the culture is about your values. What is it we find important? Do we treat each other with dignity and respect? Do we treat our clients with dignity and respect? Do we show up and do high quality work every time? Do we take pride in it? And when people are not living those values, then there's got to be an accountability piece of that from the leadership, or even better, from the peers.
Right. So you hope you build a culture within your company that the peers will take care of it. Here's the accountability piece, right? Look at your uniform, right? There's, dirt all over, or mastic, or in our industry. All right. You need to tighten it up. Right. So, and we would do the same for each other in the military, like, hey, your collar is flipped, whatever the case, right? You're not looking as sharp. You're not living up to the standard that we've set for ourselves in the culture. So hopefully at the peer level, they're doing that. Now, I would say, and especially you've been at the command level. If you're the one that's addressing somebody down at the tactical level, there's been some type of failure through your managers, your other leaders. Like, how could they not have caught that? So I would say for the most part, yes, our flat organization, I can see stuff at the tactical level, but as the organization grows, the accountability is still what lays with you. as the owner, the CEO, or VP, or however the structure of the organization is. But yeah, I would say the consistency part you bring up, being accountable is one thing, right? And being consistent in your accountability. Man, I'd like to say I'm freaking on it all the time with that, but sometimes I slip up with that as well, right? I'm not holding people accountable like I need to. So leadership for me it's a daily interaction, right? There's constantly, I'm trying to get better with it and constantly reading and listening to podcasts. And you know the deal, right? We're on a podcast right now. The more you hear others kind of at our level and a little bit above, you'll find out that they're dealing with the same issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's an HBR study that says 70% of all leaders struggle with accountability. And I believe it. As an executive coach, I talk to a lot of folks that say, well, I'm trying to be popular. And that's like the first leadership myth you got to break is your job is not to be popular. You could be a popular leader, but usually that comes from having accomplishments and inspiring people. And yes, you could treat them with dignity and respect, but you've got to hold them accountable.
Yeah, there's a whole trust thing that goes into that, Bob. You know that, right? So as the folks that are working for you, they need to be able to trust you, right? If they see you not living up to the standard, how do they expect to be held accountable for anything? Right. So yeah, it's something that leaders have to work on every single day. Right. Just go through your daily checklist in the morning, right? You do a little bit of I'm grateful for this, and these are the things I need to be a good leader. And let's go to the gym. And right. So you're setting the standard for the whole organization. And especially in the trades industry, they're looking at folks. It doesn't matter how long they've been in the industry. How well do they know their skill? Do they trust and respect? Once you have a couple of those things in place, you have a budding leader, right? Which that's a tough thing too, right? Because you got new leaders, and we'll probably talk about that here in a little bit. But it's one of those things where you need to really be aware of your presence in the organization. It's the whole, hey, when nobody's around, are you doing the same things? And boy, you better be on, because people see you, right? Just because you're out there doing a thing, you might have a vehicle roll by and go, oh, this guy was sitting down on the job, or he's not doing this thing out there. And we're putting guys out in the field, guys and girls out in the field, and we're expecting them to go out with the company values and the building trust with the customer and building, it's all relationships. So you have to be able to trust that individual going out there. They have to know what the standards are. They have to know they're going to be held accountable if they're not doing those things. So
I think that is a particular challenge with the residential services, where everybody is customer facing at some point. And particularly when it's so personal that you're going into somebody's home and you're meeting with a homeowner and you're trying to solve a problem that they're probably pretty frustrated about.
sure, absolutely. It's such a vulnerability. And believe me, I mean, we talk about it all the time. You as an individual are going into this home for the first time. They don't know you from Adam, right? They may know the company because they looked at the website, they talked to our representatives on the phone. So they're working on building this whole trustworthy, building a relationship before we even get into the home. But once you're there, you're the one center stage. You're the one that has to continue to build that trust. And even once they're gone, our company reaches back out, making sure that they got everything that they needed, right? And then we're, sending thank yous, and we're trying to keep them in the loop so they feel like they've been taken care of, like we've added value to them, not only fixing the issue, but if you have these issues in the future, that hopefully you'll call us.
I think that's the exact right model that I would want as a customer. And if I was a business owner in residential, I would want to instill those values in every employee, that, look, you are the face of the company. You are, you're the face of this industry to a large extent to that homeowner. But in trades, there's often not a sense of professionalism. There's hey, we just need to be skilled. and we just need to be able to do the job. It doesn't matter if it's construction or any of the other trades. But particularly in skilled trades, it's like you just have to be good technically. And you're telling me that that's not enough.
It's not. It's not. Skilled trade will get you as far as you have no customer interaction, right? But I would say even if your communication skills don't work well, right? You're very good. And we've let people go that are highly skilled and they just didn't have the people skills or the social skills, and they didn't live up to the standard of what the company was. Like when it comes to the skill, we can train to the skill. It's the attitude, right? It's the way the customer perceives them. We're looking for a high quality individual, right? But the skilled trades, I mean, it can be a trick because some guys just want to work on equipment. And that's fine. There's parts of the industry that'll allow you just to do that. The commercial HVAC space is not customer facing. I would say it's very much machine focused. But in the residential space, you got to be good at talking to customers in a way that is not too technical, because when you start throwing jargon around that's industry specific, you're going to start losing people, right? What do people care about, especially in our industry? Does it cool? Does it heat? That's it, right? Can I go over, push this button, make sure it's cool? But when our technicians are out there, they bring a different awareness to different things that could be going on with the system. And they want to go ahead and make sure that system lives long, right? It has a very long life, because nobody likes to go ahead and swap out their AC unit, especially in the middle of summer. So we're there to go ahead and provide that preventative maintenance piece. We're just doing checkups. And honestly, during storms, like we've had 2 significant storms here recently, our CSRs are on the telephone, just reaching out to our customers just to see how they're doing, right? Do you need anything? This Florida has a large population of the elderly. We're checking on the folks that we know that have problems getting around. So we'll reach out to those customers and make sure they're taken care of. And we've sent vans just to help them out. So, but that's part of being part of the community, though. And honestly, you served in the military as well as I did. There's a certain level of service that's just ingrained in, most people that serve their country that way. Or even, firefighters, police. There's a service aspect of your character. So you want to go out there and help people.
Yeah, and I think that's an incredibly important part of building a great community, and being community minded. It helps bring that professionalism. Like, look, I'm here for a purpose, and you pointed that out. Like, people want culture, leadership, and purpose. And look, people in Florida without air conditioning are suffering, and we don't like suffering. No, we don't want anybody in our community to suffer, let alone our clients and customers.
Yeah.
But you don't do this alone, right? As you grow, you obviously have to build layers of leadership to do that. So you're going to have to either find people who are already pre-assembled as the perfect leader, or you're going to have to grow them. So how do you go about doing that, Troy?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I would say you can find people throughout the industry, all skilled trades, right? So we have guys there that have 40 years experience. He's my ops manager right now. We have a younger guy in there that's got about 20 years of experience. He's a manager, a service manager, and install manager. And it's interesting because both of them are out of the military. So there's a certain understanding on how leadership goes. But leadership has also changed within the military since, for instance, the guy that's got 40 years. Even how people are led in the military nowadays is completely different. So there's a lot of refreshing that needs to go on. This is not bark orders at folks and expect them to follow. It doesn't work like that anymore. In fact, my early years I can remember just being my first couple of years of being a team leader, where I had a couple guys underneath me, or when I moved up a little bit and I think I had like 19 other SEER guys underneath me. That was a challenge because I was a Gen Xer and they weren't, right? They were a different breed. And I'm like, what is going on? I was super ate up when I was a kid in the military. And I thought, just like a lot of people do, I just tell them what to do and they do it. And then after a little bit, not that long, you figure out that doesn't work.
Right.
So how am I going to influence these younger folks? And just like we were talking about at the beginning, Bob, it comes down to the relationship part. It's knowing people at the, I hate to say tactical level, but it's knowing people. Like, what motivates them? What are they into? Like, a lot of the guys were into motorcycles. I'm not into motorcycles, but they were. But I took an interest in that. And, it's once you show that you care enough to listen, is I think where you end up winning a lot in the leadership realm of just being able to influence at a certain level.
Yeah, you said something before about building trust, right? And there always comes a time, well, not always, but in particularly in the military where you're in crisis action mode,
Sure.
whether you're in combat or doesn't really matter what the crisis is, where you may have to bark orders. If that's how you live every day, you're going to be in trouble. But if you've built trust and everybody understands that you're in a crisis, they're going to respond to your leadership. They're going to know, okay, the only reason Troy is barking the orders right now is because it's really important that I do exactly what he says.
Yeah.
But if you try to live like that, if that's how you like, you send people out for groceries by barking it, you're going to lose that trust. You're going to lose that ability to be able to connect with them and to instill with them that sense of urgency when it's really important.
Right. So it's for us, it's life, limb, or eyesight, right?
Right.
You want to get the hairs up on the back of my neck, right? I'm not going to yell at you, but this is where we take a different tone on how we're doing our leadership. But I would say even with that, it's not necessarily me, but it's your safety, right? And I say in crisis, when we're leading in crisis, it's about your safety, right? Whatever it happens to be, whatever mission is being run, and they need to take that a lot more serious because, again, it's life, limb, or eyesight.
Right.
That's what I put that back to. Outside of that, like well, here in Tampa, nobody's shooting at you. We go into great neighborhoods and there's no issues that we have with our technicians, with our customers. So for me, if somebody puts in the wrong breaker, doesn't have something on site, it's not like, great. Yeah, we blew it.
Yeah.
Kind of Home Depot, get the right part and go back there. It's going to be okay.
Right.
It's not the end of the day. But in the construction industry, when you're on a schedule, and for the most part, for residential, we're in and out in a day. Like, we're installing ductwork, we're doing a retrofit, we're doing service. So the timeline's pretty short. So we don't really have schedules like that. But in the construction industry, other trades, you're trying to get all these different trades into these certain parts of the schedule. And holy smokes, like, if electrical doesn't get this done, HVAC can't get this done, if HVAC, and so on and so forth. So there's more collaboration, I would say, within that space that needs to happen to have a great outcome for general contractors, for the client. So communication plays a huge role when you're talking GCs. We sub sometimes, but for the most part, we self-perform most of our work, and it's pretty tight.
It does make it simpler for sure.
Yeah.
But I often think of the trades as being sort of legacy industries because we've been building buildings for a couple thousand years now, and
Yeah.
fundamentally things haven't changed all that much. You still need a foundation, you still need some walls, and you need to put a roof on it. But technology has, probably more so in recent years than any time in our history, has really come into play in the trades in a way that I think is pretty unexpected by people. How do you incorporate new technologies into what you're doing?
So I would say in the commercial space, technology has been around a little bit longer than it has in the residential. So we have a lot of folks that have worked in the industry back when, and this is very industry specific, so I'll try and explain it in a sense. So you have the refrigerant lines that go through the system. Older technicians will just grab the suction line, the fatter line, and go, okay, it's beer can cold. All right, well, what the hell does that mean?
That's it.
Nowadays, we have
Uh,
technology in our gauges. It tells us exactly what the temperature is and the subcooling and so on and so forth. To go even beyond that, there's a company out there called Measure Quick that does fantastic work. And you can put all these probes on the system, right? There's 9 different locations to put these probes. And on your iPad, you can track everything that's going on, from the electrical to the airflow to the temperature on the inside of the house and the outside. It's fantastic for doing diagnostic work where guys are challenged, like we can't find what the problem is. You put that stuff on, or we're commissioning a system. That technology not only helps professionalize, but it gives that trust factor to a customer that it is super important to them. Like they can see on their grade sheet how that system is performing. I just paid over $10,000 for this AC system. I want to know, outside of just feeling it in my vent, that it works properly. And now I have the paperwork to give to the customer that says, hey, this is what your machine is doing. We promised that we were going to get it to that level, and we did. Even to the point of, gosh, we have so much technology, and I love for our company to exploit as much of that technology as possible. So we use everything. We've been pretty early stage for a lot of these companies that are coming on, introducing technology. Now, all of it doesn't work, but we've found some that have been super helpful for our business.
I think the openness to that, right? It's not just, hey, this is a neat gadget, let's play with it, but being open to actually putting it in play, that takes a lot of courage, Troy. I think it's pretty easy to listen to your old guys that say, look, I don't know why you need this thermal sensor. If it's beer can cold, you know it's working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'd like to say that we do play a lot with the technology, right? Some of them are pretty gadgety, but we have, since it's a flat organization, we can move pretty quick on those things. So we try it out for a little bit. If it doesn't work, it goes off to the side. But I would say a lot of the items that we use for technology probably came out of the military industrial complex at one point, even to go as far as the marketing that we use. There's some stuff that's so targeted with the marketing. I'm like, oh, okay, I've seen that before, right? And that was just catching up in the civilian world, right? In the form of marketing. So everything that we touch every day, whether it's Microsoft Suite and PowerPoint, which we're very familiar with, those things are entering into the skilled trades. And there's a level of training that needs to come to that. Like not, you and I are very familiar with Outlook, right? We were born and raised on it. This our whole military career. That's how we got information in a lot of ways. In the skilled trades, that's not a thing, like Gmail or whatever. So even having the company professionalized, where we're using Microsoft products, and it's a standard across the industry, or our company. It's not a standard across the industry, of course, but we are a very small company that acts like a very big company. And the way
I,
it sets
I,
stuff
I
up.
think that makes a tremendous sense. And a lot of times when I help small companies try to figure out how to do routine things routinely to high standards, you've heard that before, right?
Oh, yeah,
That's a military mantra,
sure.
but I don't know that it's as widely spread in the private sector. But when you say that to a leader, they're like, yeah, that's what I want. I want predictable results. And I said, well, then you're going to have a process. You can't just keep winging it and expect to get high results every time. So when you took over at Air Zero, how were the processes and how much work was it to get them to make sure you were doing routine things routinely to high standards?
You should ask the folks that are still there. Um, yeah, so with our background, obviously process procedures, SOPs, all those things. So we just started at a very basic level. Let's find out how the functions of the business, right? Let's go ahead and just start setting stuff up like we would in the military, to even go as far as, and this may sound ridiculous, but in the military, we know that J1, right, the environment we came out of, J2 is intel, 3 is ops. Our folder structure is based just off that, right? So our intel is our accounting and stuff, but 3 is operations, right? And then we have future operations and all that. So everything kind of set up like the military did because the structure's already there. So it made it easy to jump into the process and system part. All the vans are set up the same way. So whether it's a service van, all the service vans are the same. The guys love the fact, I don't know if they love it or not, but I love it. Everything's in a kit, right? So when they go to their van, their PVC, their copper, everything has its own place. So all they got to do is just take that particular part out, because a lot of the inefficiencies within the skilled trades is, where the hell's my stuff, right? If you're an organized person anyway, you're going to take that forward. But if you're not an organized person, you need that structure put into place for you. So if I'm sending you out in one van on one particular day, but something happens, somebody calls out, and you need to jump into another van, everything's set up the same way. So there's no questions on where stuff is at. So at the very basic level, like some of the lean processing stuff that we learned through the military, getting an inventory. Bob, when I first stepped into this building, it was almost like, okay, where to begin? Everything was strewn throughout the warehouse. I was like, how do you guys know what your inventory is? Well, we don't. Well, how do you know that you're not rebuying the same stuff? Well, we don't. So there was a lot of, okay, let's sort the socks, if you will. Let's get everything on an inventory. That's a good place to start. Figure out where the assets are. Have some naming conventions to everything. So we're talking about the same thing as well. Like a TXV, a thermal expansion valve is not some other thing, right? So when we're communicating throughout the ranks, whether it's the person that's taking phone calls, they know what evaporator coil is, right? So just some of those standard things that we threw into place, and then we can build from there. Once everything's kind of sorted out, now we can go into, here's the process when we go into the home. This is how we interact with the customer. This is how we do a maintenance. Everything's got a lesson plan. The military is big on training. I love training, so we train a lot. And if I don't know it, which is most likely the case, we outsource that training to make sure that they're getting it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm taking notes here because you said a lot of stuff that I think is really important to leadership, no matter where you're at, whatever your industry is. And I mean, I could see clearly the things that you reference within the military because I lived that world for so long, but I can see clearly into your HVAC company and how it runs because I know the models that you're using, even though I've never been inside of an HVAC company. And there's some management pieces to that you've overlaid on top of that are incredibly important that every company's got to have. You have to have the right people in the right seats. You have to have structures. You have to have processes. And you talked about some of the things that you brought out of the military, like load plans, inventories, processes, and technology. Like all of those things are kind of the management nuts and bolts of running the business piece, but overlaying that is the values and the culture and the professionalism. And
Right.
you said something to me in the past where you said, you just got to have pride in your work and pride in your team. And if you can instill that with your folks, and when we really talk about pride, they could point at something that said, yeah, I've got my name on that and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. Oh man, there's nothing better than just bragging on your people. And I love to do that all the time. Just like, I don't know how that works, but this guy does, right?
Right.
Or, hey, she's got this locked up in the back office. I mean, this is all the processes are tight back there because we're trying to make it easy not only on the customer so they have a great experience, right? And that takes the whole team to do so. The technicians are out there in the field making sure that the customer during that touch point is getting it as well. And I want to be, as an owner, know that I can send any of our folks into my mom's house and know that it's taken care of, right? Like she's not going to get run over with some expensive, ridiculous bill, right? So they're taking care of her. They're not condescending or any of that, right? You want to make sure that your customers are the first and foremost in your mind, right? We're not there to extract money out of people like that. That's not how you build a business. And having a business, a small one as well, in a community is a super important part of that. So.
I love that as a bellwether, right? If I don't want to send any of my texts into my mother's house, then it probably doesn't belong in this organization.
Absolutely.
So that what a great litmus test for making sure you have the right people in the right seats, taking care of your teammates and taking care of your customers. Troy, I love what you do, man, and I love how you do it. This is great. Thank you so much for being here today and being on the podcast and sharing your wisdom and your insights about how do you apply what you learned as a special operator in the Air Force to something as high touch as residential HVAC. It's an amazing crossover, and I congratulations on your success so far. And I know you're going to continue to grow the business because you have all the right ingredients and the right mindset to do that.
Yeah, love being part of it. Thanks for the opportunity today, Bob. It's always good to see you.
It's always a pleasure. Our guest today has been Troy Daland. He's with Air Zero. How do they get in touch with you, Troy?
They can go to the website. There's also info@airzero.com, or Cash's social media, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can reach out to me personally at troy.daland on LinkedIn. It'll pop right up. So yeah, just glad I was part of this community today.
Dude, me too. And best of luck to you going forward. And please don't be a stranger. If there's anything I can do to help you grow your business, please let me know.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, bud.